Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Fantasy Football Consistency Show here on Big Guy Fantasy Sports Network. As always, I'm Bob Lung here, Big Guy Fantasy Sports, and always to my right, Ron Rigney, who pretty much says, as we all feel up here in Northeast Ohio, Browns are going to brown. I don't even know. I always said I hope they win a Super Bowl before I die, and 20 years ago I thought no problem. It's getting closer every day, brother. How you been?
And I'm telling. Oh man, yeah, it's one of these things too that it's just like they always have a hype going into a season, and there's always so much to get excited about. And this giving up the plethora of first round and third round and fifth round picks for Deshaun Watson, and then handing him all that money and getting absolutely nothing so far on that investment except some extremely mediocre football. Could have had Josh Dobbs as your backup, who's the darling of the league right now in Minnesota,
Yep.
and it is, I don't know, man. And you can't even lean on Nick Chubb because he's been gone since like the first series of the year. So I don't know. It's almost like it's a curse or something. It's almost like the Chicago Cubs curse that
Yeah,
they were like a few years
I'm
ago.
really starting to believe that. And then you add in that the fact that they won in a big comeback against the Ravens, so that hype was like, oh my gosh, look, we can be a real football team even without Nick Chubb. And look at this. And Deshaun Watson's the man. And then boom, he's done. It's like, okay, fine, move on. And now you know why I play fantasy since 1985, kids. There we go. And that was literally the statement I think I made back at that time. And the Browns were pretty good, but I remember saying, well, at least this gives me somebody to root for other than the Browns. And 40 years later, it still holds true.
Here we are.
Or at least almost 40 years later. Yeah. All righty. Well, let's get into it here. Fantasy football consistency. We look at the quarterback positions, and well, our friend Josh Allen is all of a sudden just started kind of suck at football. And he's still number one in total points just because he first off, he hasn't had a bye yet. So that helps, but dropped down to 70% now. Jalen Hurts in first place at 89%. Sam Howell is now in third place in total points because we all expected that at 80%. I traded him away thinking, oh, he won't continue this, right? Now I'm starting to like, damn, maybe I should have traded Justin Herbert away and kept Sam Howell.
I would agree.
I might have got more for Herbert. Who knows? But Herbert's fifth. He's 78%. So, it's not like he's sucking. Patrick Mahomes, eighth in total points, 78%. Kirk Cousins, 75%. But sadly, he's done for the year. And that's it, over 70%, kids. We've got 367%. Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Brock Purdy, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields. And at 60% is Joshua Dobbs, the aforementioned could have been backup for the Cleveland Browns. After that, everybody else is under 60%. That's not good at quarterback, gang. It's getting worse every week. Here's the most disturbing part of all of that. The clutch factor, which is the number that is calculated that a fantasy quarterback has to earn this clutch game, to get this consistency percentage. You know what it is down to now? 18.04, basically 18 points. Probably for the last number of years that I've tracked this, especially I'd say the last 10 for sure, it was always somewhere between 19 and 20, usually closer to 20. I used to say, if you got over 20 points, pretty much guaranteed you get a clutch game. We've dropped 2 points, and yet we still have maybe 8 quarterbacks that are playing, because remember, in that is Kirk Cousins, and he's hurt. He's out for the rest of the year, are over 60% consistent. One of them is a backup. One of them was Mr. Irrelevant. One of them is a Sam Howell rookie. Is this the second year? I forget.
Second year.
So the only studs that are still in that group are Hurts, Herbert, Mahomes, Josh Allen. Needless to say, I think quarterbacks are starting to be. Can we now put quarterbacks and catchers together? I mean, tight ends. We've definitely written. We've apologized to the catchers, but are quarterbacks and catchers now becoming one and the same? Can we compare the two? What is happening, Ron?
I mean, we're getting close, and as you're sitting here going through these, I'm thinking of guys that I'm currently starting that are guys that I did not come away from my draft with, and they're getting me better numbers than the guys that I took away. I never would have expected Josh Dobbs to be 10th in total points, but then when you look at the consistency part of it, he's a little bit further down the line. And I don't know that we've ever seen our number one guy in total points this far down in consistency. And Josh Allen's all the way down there. He's about 5 or 6 rows down when you're looking here on the spreadsheet. I don't think we see that too often.
No, and like I said, I get it. He's played one extra game, but he's still 19 points ahead of Jalen Hurts, who's second. So I assume at some point when Allen finally has his bye, that'll kind of even out. But even at that, I mean, it's just the scoring is way down, which we've heard. I mean, this is not a surprise to anybody in the fantasy industry. Scoring is way down. There's talk about how the quarterbacks are not as productive because every team now is putting the two safeties high to keep the big plays away. They're not getting unless you're Miami and you have Tyreek Hill, you can do that. But it just seems like that certainly. But it's just amazing to me, but it also kind of just re-solidifies the concept of waiting on your quarterback. A lot of people this year, first or maybe not first round, even though I did see it a couple times. Second, third, fourth rounds were Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. Now Burrow's not in there. Maybe by the end of the year he'll be up there because he seems to keeps getting better every week. But it's going to take a while for his consistency to pick up. But I picked Justin Herbert most of the time in the 5th round. Brock Purdy was basically a backup. I mean, Baker Mayfield's a backup. Justin Fields was drafted high. Prescott's drafted high. Well, maybe not that high. Tua was drafted high. He's at 56%. He stayed healthy, which is great, but it's just really interesting. So, Ron, I don't know if you have any more comments about the quarterback position, then I'll let you just go into your guy that you want to talk about this week. But any more thoughts and who was your player you wanted to kind of highlight this week?
No, just a couple guys too that we were kind of counting on last week to come through for us. I'm looking at Will Levis a little bit further down there, but I'd say one of the bigger surprises for me, and I think for a lot of people. Now, I didn't have him, but Geno Smith, with the season we saw him have last year, kind of come on, and then he's been kind of non-existent down there, 2 for 9 in clutch games. So that's another one that I think is kind of surprising the other way. But the guy that I went with, we were talking off air a little bit. It is getting a little bit more difficult every week to find a guy that you want to talk about, but this is when I was referring to one of the guys that I kind of picked off waivers. This is a very, very shallow league, but a couple of the yearly leagues I did, this guy seemed like he was sliding a little bit too, and that's Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, last 3 weeks, has been all over it. He's got 4, 7, 11 total touchdowns, 1 interception over that time, actually 2 picks over that time, but he's got 3 300-yard games. We saw him go for 404 scores last week in that rout of the Giants, and the thing that I liked about that the most is if you have him, they didn't take their foot off the gas until they had 49 points, which was great for you if you had Dak Prescott. And if you had that in that daily game, that Dak Prescott and that CeeDee Lamb stack, he just kept going and going to him as well. But finally coming to life, kind of like what we thought he was capable of, what we thought that offense was capable of. We've seen Ferguson at the tight end spot kind of pick up, he's looking kind of like a young Jason Witten out there. They've been reminded that they have Brandon Cooks there, and he's actually been a pretty good Pro Bowl wide receiver as well. So that offense is starting to roll. It's starting to click. Now, I wouldn't say that the running backs are, although Rico Dowdle, if you did watch them play last week, Rico Dowdle is a guy that he's going to be starting to creep up on Tony Pollard a little bit more. But it's good to see Dak Prescott, especially if he's somebody that you just kind of picked as your backup, or especially with these bye weeks coming through. He's really been a great bye week fill-in if you've been able to have him as your backup.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Guy I'm going to highlight, and actually I'm going to do is more of a low light, is one Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is 4th in total points. He is 50% consistent for the year. He is 5 of 10. He's went 0 for 3 in the last 3 weeks, 13, 14, and 17 points. And yet you hear about him in MVP conversations, just like you hear CJ Stroud MVP conversations. But he's been this way for so long. And it's so funny because every year he gets drafted very highly. He's usually in that top 5 quarterback scenario. And folks this is what he is. He is, he does a lot with his legs. He's had one game where he's broke 250 yards passing, and that was the week he played against Detroit, and he went off for 353. Other than that, he hasn't been over 250 yet. A couple 237s, a couple 223s, nothing more, nothing less. Yeah, he makes it up in his legs. I get it, but man, if you have him and your team's not doing well, he's part of the problem. So definitely keep an eye on that. I don't, maybe the rest of it, see with his schedule the rest of the year. I mean, he's already played the Browns twice, so he doesn't have to deal with that again. He's got Cincinnati this week at home. It's a Thursday night game. That's tomorrow night's game, right? Chargers, then a bye. The Rams, Jacksonville, San Francisco, Miami, Pittsburgh. So a couple of decent defenses, not a ton. But, if you were making a push for the playoffs, remember, he's got to bye a couple weeks. It may not be a terrible idea to look at trading him for a Justin Herbert or somebody that might get you through and get you those extra wins that may pay off for you, and get somebody a little more consistent than just a Lamar Jackson. But what are your thoughts on Lamar Jackson? I mean, I seem not to draft him every year, and I think a lot of it has to do with this consistency issue, is that he can go off for 30 points one week and come back with 13 the next. He had 38 points week 7 against Detroit. He had 13.5 the next week against a bad defense in Arizona. Like, it wasn't like, oh, he played the Browns or he played, a good defense. He went from bad to bad and went from 38 to 13. But this is what you get with this guy. It's just very inconsistent, very hard to kind of really do anything with.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that about going against a bad defense, because one of the reasons I kind of shy away from him, I just don't feel like he was a good enough value in any draft I was in. I think I was going to have to get him a little higher than I wanted to. But it's one of those things where I know we picked him a couple times. I don't think we picked him this year, but for last year for consistently cashing in some matchups that just look great, and he just doesn't come through like he should. He doesn't come through with his legs. And I'm always kind of suspect with him too, as well as just with who I know he has to throw to. I know we got Mark Andrews, but once Mark Andrews is out of there, there's not really a whole hell of a lot left. We love Zay Flowers, but Zay Flowers is a rookie. He's all so inconsistent. I just don't trust a lot about that offense. But I mean, you can't argue with the results they have as a real life win-loss team, being 7-2 or 8-2 or whatever it is that they are. I mean, it's working, but that doesn't help us much in fantasy when we're counting on him to get points with those legs.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move on to the running back position, and of course, just running away with it this year, as he did 3 or 4 years ago, with Christian McCaffrey, 222 points. He is in first place in total points. Second place at 51 points behind, and he's actually had his bye week, so it's not like he's got that extra game in. He has a bye week. 9 for 9 consistency. Alvin Kamara, missed the first 3 games. He is 6th in total points and 7 for 7. He's been a machine, more catching out of the backfield than anything. We'll see how that works out. Now they're on a bye this week. I don't know if Carr should be back in 2 weeks, but if not, we get Jameis Winston again. Haven't had that much fun in a while. Need our boy. 83%. Austin Eckler, David Montgomery, who came back, had another clutch game. Looked strong again. Jonathan Taylor, 5 for 6, 83%, but is on a bye this week. And then at 78%, Raheem Mostert, Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, who's kind of cooled off, and DeAndre Swift at 78% as well. Joe Mixon at 78%. 75, Aching, who should be back this week. Of course, he's only 3 for 4. And Saquon Barkley at 5 for 7 at 71%. Josh Jacobs, who's hurt, and Bijan Robinson at 70% as well. That's all of them over 70. There's a lot at 67 and at 60, but I won't go into all the group. Ron, your thoughts on the top of the list here, and then who you going to highlight this week at the running back position?
Yeah, not anything too terribly shocking for some of these names, but it is kind of cool to see Alvin Kamara there, a guy I wish I had had a lot more of. I feel like of any guy that I did not get in drafts, he was the guy I got sniped on the most. So I didn't get him where where I wanted him. Like to see David Montgomery coming back last week. That 1-2 punch with him and Jahmyr Gibbs. They get that going into playoffs with Jared Goff, the way he's thrown to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. That's a scary offense, man. Never thought we'd be saying that about a Dan Campbell Detroit Lions team, but here we are. But a few surprises here. It's kind of surprising. Are we seeing the downturn, the downtick of Derrick Henry here? Are we kind of seeing him tail off a little bit? I don't know. He's a little bit further down the line. Of course, that Titans team is a mess all around as well. But the guy that I'm going to go with is a guy that I don't have a lot of shares of in yearly leagues, a couple dynasties. I've got him, and that's Javonte Williams in Denver. And I don't know if we've really been paying a whole lot of attention to Denver, but they've won 3 straight games, 4 out of their last 5. And Javonte Williams has been a big reason for that. When you look at his rushing attempts 3 weeks ago against Green Bay, and that win got 15, and then he's got 27 and 21. Samaje Perine, I don't think has worked out for them like he did in Cincinnati and like they thought he would be, kind of that change of pace guy. I know a lot of people have some Jameel McLaughlin shares too. I know he stole a little bit of the touchdown work there, the goal line work, caught a few passes as well in the red zone. But I think they're going to start getting it back to Javonte Williams and kind of getting that going now that he's coming off that knee injury. I think he's proven that he's fully healthy and able to take that 20-plus carry workload. Plus, last 2 weeks too, I like the fact that he's gotten a few targets in the passing game and snuck in the end zone there a little bit. So I wish he was involved a little bit more in the passing game because I think he's a little bit underrated as a receiver. But if he can go ahead and get you those 7 points in a PPR with those 4 catches and get you the 79 yards that he got last week, even without a touchdown for where you got him, I think that's going to be pretty good production, especially at the running back spot.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, he didn't do much early in the year, kind of was a hot mess between, I think he was a little injured and they were trying to figure things out. And so, yeah, it took him a while to kind of get into the flow. Guy I'm going to talk about is Brian Robinson. I'm pretty sure if you go to any sports bar and talk to anybody who does fantasy and bet them that, make a bet with where Brian Robinson is ranked in fantasy points in total, you probably win because I don't think anybody's going to say top 5, but he's 5th in total points. Obviously, a lot of it had to do with his big week last week where he had 27.7 points, 6 catches for 119 yards and 1 touchdown. Did Antonio Gibson die? Where in the world did Brian Robinson all of a sudden become a receiving back? I don't think he had. Yeah, I guess he had more than 6 total catches for the year, but not much. That's for sure.
But didn't Gibson have a big week last week too? He was kind of left for dead, and I thought he had a big week too.
Who?
Antonio Gibson.
I think he had a decent week. I think he did earn a clutch game, but yeah, they must have been throwing the football a lot out of the backfield last week. But yeah, Brian Robinson, let's see, 3, 5, 9, 11, 13, 14. He had 14 catches through the first 9 weeks. Had 6 this last week. Anyway, just wanted to highlight it because he's, he may be starting on some people's leagues, but he may not be. If you're in a shadow league, even a 12-team league, Brian Robinson might be sitting on somebody's bench, depending on how many flexes you have, obviously. But take a look for that. I mean, it's not a terrible idea. And they play the Giants this week, so should be another good week for them offensively. Definitely something to look into. But yeah, take a look out there and see where Brian Robinson is in your league. It may be worth taking a shot with that. And then real quick, I just wanted to highlight this. Bijan Robinson, Rachaad White. Who do you think has scored more fantasy points this year?
Rachaad White. It's not even close.
By 0.5.
Is it only 0.5? I would have thought it was way more than
0.5. Yeah. And I know everybody's like, oh, Bijan Robinson, he hasn't done this, hasn't done that. You realize he's 70% consistent, as bad as he is, as much as we hate Arthur Smith and as much as we've been bitching about, and I don't have a lot of Bijan Robinson, but he's 70% consistent. He's 9th in total points, and yet we think he's having a just absolute disaster of a year. So think about that, folks, as you go into next year's draft, that he may be worth getting pretty early because you might be grabbing him before he finally tails off. But remember, you heard it, right, Ron? I know you know this. You heard it this last Saturday on the Consistently Cashing that I called it. I said this was Bijan week because Arthur Smith shaved his mustache to look younger so that he could have younger players in. You're welcome. All of you out there, you're welcome. Just saying. All right, let's move into the wide receiver position. I don't get a lot right, but I just thought it was funny when
we're hitting all the angles too. We're giving you
that's
all
right.
kinds of
We're
reporting
coming
from
in.
yeah.
Consistency is not just in their performance. Sometimes it's, consistency in their mustache grooming. You never know.
You never know.
But I still laughed at that when I saw he went off. I'm like, yes. And we cashed. I wasn't,
We did.
We've been on fire with that. Okay. Wide receiver positions still at 100%. Tyreek Hill and the sun god himself, Amon-Ra St. Brown, both 100%. Tyreek 9 for 9, Amon-Ra 8 for 8. At 90%, Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, Jordan Addison. Quite a trio there. Keenan Allen, 89%, but got hurt this past week, so keep an eye on that. Was his injury very significant?
I don't know, because honestly, I don't think I have him in one league this year, and I saw that he had a pretty decent week, so I don't know if
he had a great week. He had a monster week.
I'm not sure if it happened at the end of the game or
for
he just
some
got it out.
reason, I remember him showing up on the.
Yeah, he's questionable. I did see that.
Yeah, on the. But I thought it was pretty. Oh, okay. It's a shoulder, and he's day to day. Interesting. So anyway, keep an eye on that. And the only reason I bring it up is my daughter in one of her leagues got a trade offer. She was giving up Keenan Allen for DeAndre Hopkins and DeAndre Swift. And I'm like, DeAndre Swift is 89% consistent at running back. D-Hop has been down. I get it. He's kind of been tailing off a little bit with Will Levis, but I'm like, my daughter needs depth and definitely the running back position.
That's not bad.
I didn't think it was a bad trade, but I definitely thought he had more, but he is, again, 31 years old and got to be careful with him. So I was like, yep, trade him away before he gets seriously hurt. But 89%, Keenan Allen, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf at 88, Justin Jefferson still at 80. 78%, Adam Thielen, Mike Evans, Garrett Wilson, Christian Kirk, Brandon, and then 75 is Brandon Ayuk and Jalen Waddle. Samuel's at 71%. DJ Moore, Chris Olave, Terry McLaurin, Zay Flowers at 70. I don't know if there's a lot of surprises there. I think some are higher than we thought. I mean, obviously Jordan Addison is off the charts crazy this year. A lot of it's had to do with Justin Jefferson being out, but he's also been very good when he's been in. But your thoughts on that, and then what player are you looking at to talk about this week?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few like the trio you said, kind of in the middle there, Pittman, Addison, and or just Pittman and Addison, and because
Pittman and Addison, at the 90%, yeah. And interesting enough, they're 12 and 13 Michael total Pittman points.
Right, and that's kind of the opposite of what we were talking about with Josh Allen. A couple guys that are a little bit further down. So that further proves why we do what we do here, to show you this, because we're showing you that these guys are, they may not be in the top 10 in total points, but they're contributing something solid to you every week. And then you go down to guys like Jamar Chase, for example, who sits here 6th in total points. That's a little bit misleading too, because a lot of that came in that one game with the 3 touchdowns. But he's sitting way down there at 67% consistent. So it just kind of shows you, kind of illustrates why we do this here. But the guy I'm going to highlight, I'm cherry picking here, and I'm by no means do I want to give any Cowboys fans any more room to gloat and do the things that they do. But it's hard to argue. I talked about Dak Prescott. It's hard to argue that CeeDee Lamb is not the best receiver in the league. Yeah. And I mean, they're showcased on national TV every week. And I know they played some teams that have been pretty questionable, but they're dialed in, and it's fun to see, CeeDee Lamb be that guy. I mean, I would argue the last couple of weeks, he's the best guy in the league at that position, 89% consistent. We gave him to you a couple of weeks ago as well in one of those lineups that we cashed in, but just been, like I said, just been dialed in. 14 plus targets in the last 3 games. Now, granted, that's against the Rams, Philly, the Giants, a couple secondaries that are a little more questionable than you might think. But I mean, when he's getting, not that you're not ever going to start CeeDee Lamb, but we don't see too many guys nowadays that have put up those 100-yard games like he's put up over the last few. And those ones that he only, in the 4 games ago, he only got 7 grabs for 117, didn't get the double-digit catches like he's had. So if you're fortunate enough to have that stack in a yearly league, you're cruising these last 3 weeks. I know I had Dak in one of my leagues, like I said earlier. I wish I had CeeDee Lamb, but like I said, I think we talked about them a little bit too on the Cash and Show. We didn't end up going with them, but a couple weeks ago they got us on the board with the clutch game there as well. But CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, just fun to watch.
Yeah, it's been interesting. We had that like 6 weeks where AJ Brown was over 125 every week, and then he just wouldn't say he cooled off. I mean, like you said, he probably dropped down to 5 for 95 and a touchdown. But yeah, and then it's kind of like CeeDee Lamb has taken the last 3 games, and then he's went over 150, I think, in all 3. So it's been fun to watch. If you had both of them on your team, you're doing very well. But anyway, so the guy I'm going to highlight, kind of like with Lamar Jackson, I'm going to highlight because of his inconsistency. I always kind of look at these and see if there's anybody that is in the top 36, top 24, but consistency is way off the charts and from a bad perspective. And that one is Tyler Lockett. He's 24th in total points, but he's 44% consistent. And the interesting thing is he's 2 out of his last 3 to get to that point. So it's been a tough year for Tyler Lockett fans. You talked about Geno Smith earlier, kind of being inconsistent as well. And then the amazing thing is then DK Metcalf is at 88%. The amazing thing is DK Metcalf is 38th in total points. While Tyler Lockett is 24th. He's 88%. Tyler Lockett is 44%. Again, this is why we do this stuff, folks. Right now, if you said, I don't know if somebody would trade you Tyler Lockett for DK Metcalf straight up. Probably not. You never know, but if you said, hey, he's 24th and he's 38th, the consistency. They don't. That's where you can take that advantage. So definitely take a look at that. Like I said, these are ones that we definitely want to highlight and make sure that I just want you to know 33rd in total points. Also 44% is George Pickens. There's nobody below that that's in the top 36, but just wanted to highlight some of those kind of folks because, again, those players are the players that you don't want on your teams because the inconsistency is going to kill you. So definitely pay attention. And that's why we're bringing it up to you. All right, let's go to our favorite position, the tight ends. And all alone in first place is not Travis Kelce. It is TJ Hawkinson at 90%. Hasn't had his bye week, but he is ahead of Travis Kelce now by 22 points. But Kelce's 2 games behind because of a bye and, of course, because of his injury. His injury didn't play that first week. Mark Andrews, 78%. Sam Laporta, 78%. Evan Ingram still cooking along at 78%. 67%. Jake Ferguson, 60%. Cole Kmet, Jonnu Smith. We're done. That's it. Over 60. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tight ends over 60%. And 2 of them are at 60. Some of them are coming up. Some of them have been doing well. Guys like Dalton Kincaid, Dalton Schultz, Logan Thomas, Dave Njoku, all kind of really been kicking in the last 3 to 4 weeks. Ron, your thoughts? We hate them all, but I'm happy because I have Dalton Kincaid. I've been getting it. I have Dalton Schultz.
I've been getting it right with tight end the last couple of weeks. I've got George Kittle in a dynasty. I traded my number 1 pick in next year's draft for George Kittle because I had nothing at tight end, and that's worked out well for me. So, but the main thing there is he's been healthy as well, but put up a couple big games there. I was actually able to trade Jamar Chase last week in a yearly league for TJ Hawkinson and Devin Achane, and I already had Evan Ingram, so I've got him on my bench. And Hawk went off for me, won big in that league, needed a win in that one too. So that was looking good. And then Devin Achane coming back is just icing on the cake. So that worked out. But the guy that I'm going to highlight, guy that I love, one of my favorite players, just I love the way he plays the game. Penn State guy, plays for the Steelers, Pat Freiermuth. Pat Freiermuth's the guy that's been on IR, and he's a guy that I know in a lot of my leagues has been dropped. I know a lot of people didn't have the roster spot for him with these bye weeks coming up, and I get it. He's only 1 for 4 as far as consistency, but you can't argue. Well, the one thing I don't like is he does have Kenny Pickett throwing him the football, but they seem to have a little bit of chemistry there. When you look over the last couple of years, Pat Freiermuth, 2022 full-time starter, played in only 8 of 16 games, 732 yards, 2 scores. Last year had a few less yards, only 3 less catches, but 7 touchdowns. So not going to be at the top, giving you Kelsey Hawkinson type numbers, but a guy that Kenny Pickett likes to throw to, likes to target him, who's targeted in the passing game in 2022, 98 times, and then in Kenny Pickett's rookie year, 79 times. So he's definitely there. He's definitely one of his favorite targets, especially in the red zone. And they've been a little bit iffy on offense, but he's only going to help him get better. But he's a guy that if you need some help at tight end, need a guy for the bye weeks, he's probably available in, I would say, most leagues out there, he's especially available in most shallow leagues. But a lot of people dropping him. He might be somebody's second tight end. They might have been able to get Trey McBride, and they're a better, a little bit, think they're a little bit better off with that. They might trade him for very little. So guy that you might want to target if you need a little bit of help at that spot, or if you have multiple flexes and he's got a good matchup coming up against tight ends, whoever that may be against.
Before I talk about my guy, I also wanted to talk about, if you remember, in our consistently cashing this past saying, we used 2 tight ends because we used Dalton Schultz and Dalton Kincaid, I think, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Remember, we were going to do TJ Hawkinson,
Yes.
but he was questionable. We're like, no, we can't take that chance. It would have scored a few more points. But yeah, definitely worked out well. So my guy, Logan Thomas, he's quietly 12th in total points, but he's 56% consistent. But more importantly, he's earned 3 out of his last 4 weeks in clutch games, 4 out of the last 6, so 67% over the last 6 weeks. Definitely a guy that every week he's just there. And the thing is, he's not doing this with touchdowns. So over the last 4 weeks, 5 catches, 4 catches, 6 and 4 yards, 40, 31, 44, 51. So he's getting that 9 points, 10 points, just enough. Remember, tight ends is about 8 points for a clutch game. So, he's getting 9.1. In fact, the 1 week he missed over the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks, he went 4 for 31, which was 7.1. So he just missed. If he would add one more catch, he would have hit 8.1 and been over anyway. So he's right there every week. Again, he's not setting the world on fire, but if you need a tight end, you got somebody on bye week this week, definitely check that out for sure. So as we wrap this up, Ron, tell everybody where they can find you, all the cool stuff we got going on, all the money we're winning and consistently cashing. Prop bets 3 for 3, still not where we want to be, but we're getting there.
We'll take it. We're doing well and consistently cashing. I think in a couple of these lineups we've thrown out there, you could throw them in your GPPs and maybe win a little bit there. We're not taking down the Sunday Million yet, but who knows? But we're at least using this consistency to build that floor and get you those above 50% scores. So happy to do that for you. And congrats on the prop bets. We're getting that going in the right direction. Again, I think all the great articles we got over there with all the guys at BigGuyFantasySports.com, this show, and then everything great we got coming out this weekend. And last but not least, random football card of the week, ladies and gentlemen, Hall of Famer Jack Youngblood, hand-signed Upper Deck Legends card. This dude was crazy. If you don't know who Jack Youngblood is, look him up. He's one of those guys with the pictures with the tape all on the hands and ripped off, and the little face mask on the helmet and the tooth missing, and just one of the baddest dudes to ever lace him up and play. And
as somebody that's met him for 34 years at Hall of Fame weekend, super nice guy. But at 75 years old, he'd still kick my ass. He'd still kick most people's ass. Just a big boy, just tough guy, but loves his cigars. So that's him and I are good friends. But definitely a super nice guy. But great card, especially autograph. That's really cool. So as always, you can find everything Big Guy Fantasy Sports, all the great stuff going on. Dan Turner's 1 week wonders. There are 3 players out of 10 weeks. Well, I shouldn't say. Let's go back a couple weeks. Through 8 weeks, there are only 3 players that after their big week has maintained 60% consistency. And so you multiply that times 4 every week, that's 32 players. Only 3 have maintained 60%. One of them is CJ Stroud. So interestingly enough, that's why we track the stuff. Check out Dan Turner's article. It's up there today. Colby's Who's Hot, Who's Not was on there yesterday. Just keep an eye on everything. We'll be, like you say, consistently cashing profit like it's hot. All coming to you this weekend. Prue Patel's with his under the radar. His forgot what it was about. The Who Stardom Situm. We've got, and also James Knight with his under the radar. Great stuff there as well. So for Ron Rigney, I'm Bob Lung. Everybody have a great week. Take care. God bless.